Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Mothers. I'm Sarah Brown, rocking a strong millennial side part, and here helping us get to know the inner worlds of industry leaders and changemakers who are also somehow raising the next generation. How are they doing it? How are they feeling about it? What can we learn from them? A reminder to subscribe and review wherever you listen, and follow us on Instagram at The Mothers Pod. Today we have, as Brené Brown would say, a wholehearted conversation with a lifelong creative, tech exec, and mother who is doing it all while navigating life with OCD and anxiety, Corrie Pappas. I enjoyed so much about this conversation, but particularly how it laid bare the truest, most tender, and most universal experience of growing up, having career ambitions and dreams, scrutinizing those dreams, coming to terms with reality, though never really accepting reality because some dreams must never die. And despite all of that, raising kids to dream too. Corrie also shares what it is like to parent and pursue a creative life while carrying OCD and anxiety, which in many ways operate in conflict with what creativity and parenthood is all about, a surrendering and loss of control. So many parents will see and hear their truest selves in Corrie's experience that she was bravely willing to share with us, because it is very much a story of self-exploration, becoming, and finding the courage to do the hard thing anyway. So please enjoy this conversation with Corrie Pappas. Anywho, thank you for being here.
Yes, we're so excited.
We, as you know, you're one of our strongest listeners. We like to start with this question about how we get to the Corrie of today and your version of your journey. You're welcome to begin at the very beginning or wherever feels meaningful to you and most relevant.
So I grew up on the East Coast. Was born in Christian Hospital, just like our friend.
Right. Oh my God, I forgot. Yes.
And but then I spent most of my childhood in a small town in Massachusetts, and then finished school and college in Delaware. Then I moved out to California for a while, and met my husband in LA. But through all that, I think that I've always been very artistic, and I've always wanted that to be part of my life. And it was interesting. I think one of my biggest kind of revelations or through lines through this, especially becoming a parent, is realizing what's my fantasy versus what's reality, and what are really my, how do I say it? What are the things that are really important to me, and how does that fit into my life? And so, when I was a kid, I always loved like writing and dance and music. And then I started getting into acting when I was in high school. And that was my big goal, that I was going to, be an actress, and I would watch the Academy Awards all the time, and I would do, but my parents really wanted me to stay close to home for college, and the University of Delaware at the time didn't have an acting program. So I decided on something else, and that's what led me to hospitality management. But acting was still a big thing for me, and I wanted to do it in some way. And so I did a lot of theater when I was on the East Coast, and then had some really cool experiences in college. Because of my major, I got to work at Disney World for a semester, which was a lot of fun. And
costumes or no costumes?
No costumes. Trying out for costumes didn't make probably is a good thing, because it's like hide and sweat.
Talk about hot. Oh my God. Yes. I can't imagine what it's like in those.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And then went away to England for part of the school year for drama and English classes, and then eventually got a job in hospitality out in the Bay Area, and was so excited to remember getting that letter, because I'm like, I'm going to California. That's how I'm going to make it,
Yeah.
Yes. And my naive, 21-year-old self. So I moved out there, and I was there for a few years and did a bunch of different jobs. Realized hospitality wasn't really for me anymore. Moved on to some other stuff, but still kept doing a lot of theater work. And then just eventually bit the bullet, moved to LA, was a writer's assistant for a while, and had odd jobs, and kept trying to, move into acting more, and did some screen work there a little bit. And then I met my husband, who was my first boss's computer guy when I was living in LA. We met like 2 days after I started living there. And then in 2008, my husband and I started working together with his IT company, which is now a telecom company, but we've been working together ever since then.
Wow.
Dang.
And in 2021, in the height of the pandemic, we thought, let's move across the country. And so we moved back to Newton, where he grew up, and then decided we wanted to have our son raised here near his family. Trying to get my parents to move back east again, but now that they're in San Diego, I'm like, come on, you want to come back? And they're like, yeah, no, not really.
Oh, had they moved to San Diego in some ways for you, or
yeah,
no?
they kind of followed me and my sister out west. Yeah, and now we're trying to get them back, and they're not having it.
No.
Oh, wow.
But we wanted to have my son around more family that was closer by, and I think the pandemic really made us realize that, because we were so isolated.
Yeah.
And my husband has 2 brothers, and they have families, and his parents are here. And we wanted, knowing Newton was such a great school system, we wanted him to have a good school system to go to. And so we moved here right before he was 5. And my husband and I are still working together today out of the same small office.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Wow.
So amazing.
And you have some creative hustles on the
Yes,
side.
yes.
I don't know how would you describe them? Yeah.
So thank you, Sarah, because I was like, I know I had to point to all this.
No, it's keep going. It's hard. It's a hard question, actually.
So anyway, as I was doing a little bit more acting in LA and realizing, just how hard it is, and through that journey, I had been starting to see a therapist regularly and really learn a lot more about myself. And as much as I love acting, I was trying to juggle, okay, how much it is I love what I think it's going to do for me, and how much is it that I love the art itself. And I do love the art a lot, but I think that I realized it really wasn't as much for me in a holistic sense as I thought it was. And as much as I still kind of have that fantasy, it didn't seem to be really part of my reality anymore. As much as I still loved it. And then
was that what you wanted it to be? I'm sure, knowing you somewhat, I'm sure, I can't imagine you being just strictly fame hungry, but I'm curious, what was it that you were saying? If it wasn't, I guess sort of what you're saying is, do I really love the craft and the process, or do I like the end? Do I like finishing the marathon, or do I like training for the marathon and actually running the marathon? Is that kind of what you were grappling with, or what was?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of both. When I was through therapy, I kind of, and learning more about myself, when I was young, about 8 or 9, I started having really serious OCD symptoms. I didn't know what was that at the time.
Yeah.
But through therapy and magazines and reading about it and things, I sort of discovered what it was. And I think it made me realize that I felt so alone as a kid in a lot of ways because of that, because I didn't know, mental health is just not talked about then the way it is now.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until I was almost graduating from high school that I even knew other people felt this way.
Yeah.
And so I think through being kind of alone in that sense as a kid, but then also feeling very responsible for everything because of my OCD, that I felt like I just wanted to kind of feel like I was part of something. And I think I felt like if people knew who I was and they really liked what I did, and this sort of idea of not being so sheltered and sort of like secluded in a way, I felt like I wouldn't feel that loneliness anymore. But then I think that I realized that that's not the way to not feel lonely.
Yeah.
Even though I really enjoyed acting too, because it was such an outlet of like being able to show my anger and show my sadness and show all these things that I felt like were so hard to show in real life. Because
in a way that's controlled and sort of predicted. Like, that's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I love the idea of like, I can interpret a role, but a director ultimately is going to say like, you need to go here and you need to go here. And I sort of wanted that instruction. And then I feel like, okay, I can run with that and do sort of what I want, but I felt like I needed someone to sort of drive me in a certain way. But then I could sort of express myself too. And it was just me expressing someone else's feelings, but then getting my own out through that
Oh,
pipeline.
deep, Corrie.
I know, that's
Yes.
so beautiful that you were able to discover that and like figure that out for yourself. Like, I think like,
Yeah, at a young
but it
age
was,
where you don't
yeah,
want to not have these dreams.
Right.
Yeah, and be as reflective about that. That's amazing.
right.
Good therapist.
yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
No, I mean, it was hard to come to because I feel like, but I felt like it was so eye opening because I'm
Mhm.
like, I think for so long I sort of felt like there was something wrong with being sort of admitting like, yes, I
Yeah.
do want to be on a magazine cover. Yes, like I do
Yeah.
want people to know who I am.
Yeah.
And then it took me a while to be like, well, why is that bad to admit that? There's something inside you that makes you want that, and you need
Yeah.
to discover what that is, and then realize like, is that really what you ultimately want, and what reasons are you doing it for? No matter how much you love the craft itself, which I still do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also know now with a family and with my husband and my son, you know, it's also a job, you know, if you become really successful, that takes you away
Right.
and from that. And I just didn't want my life to be about that. And knowing that, and maybe if I was super successful one day, I could call more of the shots. But until then, I'm sort of at the mercy of, you know, wherever something's being made, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when I was here in Newton, actually, and my son was probably about 4, and I was laying on the floor in his room next to his toddler bed, as we moms do.
Yeah.
And I started like thinking about how I used to always write poetry when I was younger and write, you know, song lyrics and things. And I'd kind of gotten out of that for a long time. And I was just laying there, like waiting for him to fall asleep. And I thought of a poem or a beginning of a poem. And I'm like, why don't I do that anymore? And I started doing it again. And I feel like it's like led me on this whole other artistic journey of my life that I wasn't expecting. And even if it's just for me, and, you know, I mean, I do go to readings and I put, you know, my work out there, but I feel like, I don't know, in a certain way, it fulfills me more than I think the other artistic avenue would have.
Yeah.
So,
how do you think you got to a place, asking for a friend, aka myself, how did you get to a place where I love in concept, I love the idea of kind of making art for the sake of making art. I think there's also there's kind of a draw that isn't necessarily egotistical about also wanting what you do to grow and be seen and have an audience, etc.
yeah.
What do you think got you to this place where you were lying on the floor next to your toddler saying, well, maybe I'll just write this poem to write the poem, as opposed to maybe write the poem to build a brand, to sell a book, to turn it into something else? Like, how did you become so wise?
Well, not so much. So I would be lying if I said I wouldn't want it to do something with it, you know, whatever it is. So, but I think I don't know, I think part of it was from kind of realizing what some of my acting dreams were about, and knowing that, and sort of admitting to myself that it was more than just the love of the craft that was taking me on that journey. And I had also self-published a kid's book in 2013. And so kind of doing that on my own, and, you know, just having it end up being this very small thing that it was. I was trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I still feel proud about that and like happy that I did it, and not, even though, yes, would I've liked it to become more than it was, or someday be more than it is now. Yes. And I don't know. I think just from those experiences, I'm like, I have to learn how to balance it more. I have to learn how to make it be more than, oh, am I going to become a published poet someday with these books or lyricist or whatever. As much as I would love those things, because I don't know, I'm trying so hard to enjoy like the journey of it. And I feel like because I like control so much, I want to know, like, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what's going to happen because I do it. And being artistic, or wanting to be more artistic, you've realized how little control you have. You have, you know, all you have is control over what you're creating, right? But what happens to it beyond that, you have so little control in a lot of ways.
It's just like parenting.
And so I'm still trying to like reconcile that in my head.
For sure.
So I don't know. I don't think I've completely become successful at being able to do that. But I'm trying, I'm trying to do it as much
Yeah.
as I can.
I also think it gets at this kind of gnarly side of like the word ambition, which I think is actually a really productive feeling and
Mm,
a sense of, I think there's healthy ego that thinks, I think highly enough of myself that I think this has a reason. This could, as much as anything else, my book could be read as much as that person's book. But
yeah.
how to make that not be so tied up in, at least for me, validation and a sense of being good enough. Like you can be the great writer, whether the book sells or not, and trying to
Yeah.
figure out, are the sales figures what decided that I was good?
Right, right.
But that's
Yeah.
really hard.
So hard.
And I often think about how I think for everyone, but in this context, sort of for creatively oriented people, there's a sensitivity that is necessary to create because you're noticing the feelings that are in between what's so otherwise obvious. But then the promotion and production of it requires like a much thicker skin to be resilient to all that
Yeah.
stuff. So it's very, very hard. And honestly, the people where it's worked out, I think there's just so much luck for
I know.
I don't know. I think like Tom Cruise, they're like
Yeah.
500 other people that could have been
Right.
probably more than that.
Right,
All
right.
these people that could have been Tom Cruise, but for whatever reason, he was in the right room at the right time, saying the right thing with the right kind of gangly teeth and funny nose and all the things. Like,
Okay, tell us
but
what you
and
really
it worked.
think.
And then yeah. I was curious many questions, but one was on the OCD side. I was curious what is it like to parent with those instincts and a desire to control so much again in a toddler. Children cannot be fully controlled.
Right.
And I know OCD kind of goes beyond, it's more nuanced than just need to control everything. But yeah, I was curious what that experience has been like with a kid.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's been interesting. I think that being a little bit of an older mom helped me out a lot because I was able to go through so much intensive therapy and be stable on medication and things like that before I had a child. And even though I don't claim at all to know myself completely in any way, but I think I do think I've learned more about myself than I would have, obviously if I had had children earlier. And so I feel like that was one thing that really did help me because I was able to navigate those feelings a little bit better just because I had gone through so much of this journey of like trying to discover why I was doing the things I was doing. But it's been tough. I remember one time holding, I should say my son's name or not, but
I'll blip it out.
holding my son and putting him down for a nap. And I was just feeling all those, new mom anxieties about, is he going to be okay when he goes to sleep? Is he going to fall asleep? Am I doing this right? And, all these things, because you're so bombarded with all these things you shouldn't do when you first have a child. And, what books you should read and what you should not read. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to try to be calm for you. Like, I'm going to try to be calm so that it helps you be calm. Because because I remember my doctors telling me, so much of the anxiety that you have as a mom does get transferred to your baby. And so that's why it's so important when you're going through that to really try to understand as much as you can where these feelings are coming from and so that you don't feel so alone and feeling like I'm going to try to be less anxious for him. And in that moment, it worked great. It didn't always work all the other moments.
Yeah,
totally.
But I think that the hardest part for me was the lack of control.
Yeah.
And this feeling that there's so much beyond my control, whether he gets sick, if he's okay, if something, if tragedy strikes, whatever it might be, I can't control those things. And that is still the one thing that just scares me so much. And because I want to be able to control everything. And I just know that I can't. And so it's like I think the hardest part of having OCD and anxiety for me was reconciling those two things of I want to have control and there's so many things I can't control. And I have to learn to be okay with that because that's just the way the world is. And that is so hard. And I feel myself and I see myself at times, being sort of probably a little too helicoptery, because I want to be able to just like keep him safe and, and make sure everything's okay. Even today, okay, restore. So even today, I knew I needed to get ready for this podcast, right? My son had camp at 9:00 and he really wanted me to bring him today. And my husband could have brought him today, but because I had told him I would bring him, and I was like, okay, I'll still bring you, and it worked out fine. But it's just that idea that like, I think if you're already a perfectionist, which I am, and you mix that with the anxiety and the OCD, this idea of being super mom just balloons and balloons and balloons. And you have to somehow use your own power in some way to make that balloon not so big. Because no one's going to do it for you. And it's so hard.
Yeah.
So hard.
Yes. Someone said this, I forget where I read this, but it was, because I think as you were describing like the need for control, which very much resonates with me, and I'm saying this intellectually and I won't be able to put it into practice, but I think useful to think about is it's the need to control. It becomes a sort of quote negative anxiety emotion if the assumption is that if I don't control, something bad's going to happen on like what's on the other side is a bad outcome. I think and going back to my oldest going off to camp, why can't I assume that on the other side is actually he's fine or he's good, and also sort of trusting him. And I think I work with my therapist on a lot of learned behavior around assuming that others kind of won't pick up the ball or won't carry their weight on some level. Yeah. And it's been interesting with kids thus far. I'm learning this about myself for the first time as I'm saying it out loud. I haven't figured that out with other places, and I'm sure it won't always be this way with my kids, but I kind of trust that they'll be okay, or that the experience, even if it's hard, will actually be useful to them. I don't know if it's like my meds are just right or I'm around V enough that I'm feeling like there's a trust in there. But I wonder if there's a way that very much easier said than done. But maybe on the other side of letting go of control is that they will be okay or good enough or whatever that is. And I don't know if that's, and I think about that in comparison to how you described when you were really going deep on the why behind wanting to be an actor. And you said so nicely of trying to think about, is it the doing of it or is it what's kind of on the other side of it that's driving it? I don't know. I was just thinking about the parallel of breaking those things down and thinking about is it focus on the doing or is it what's on the other side? And it's actually a really nice way to manage our thinking.
No, it's true. I think that there is so, all of my OCD as a kid was wrapped up in, if I don't do this, something really tragic is going to happen to someone that I love, And so then to have this being in your life that you love more than anything you could possibly imagine loving.
I know.
And to be like, what am I going to do to screw it up? I'm going to do something. And then knowing like, well, every parent screws up, right? Every parent makes mistakes. Every parent says things they wish they hadn't said. Every parent does things they wish they hadn't done. And how do you reconcile with yourself that I'm human just like everyone else. And so, and I'm not, I'm not going to not make mistakes, and realizing that maybe there's a part of that that's actually good for your child to see, as long as you're explaining the mistake that you made, right?
Yes.
They need to see that you're human too.
Yes.
And I try to like remind myself that, if I say something or do something that I be like, oh, okay, try to explain that to him. Like,
totally.
This is, just like I ask you to make good choices, maybe mom didn't make the best choice in this situation, and that's okay that I did that. Inside, I'm dying because I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. But, I'm gonna
Dr. Becky somewhere is like, her ears are buzzing. She's like, they're getting it. Someone somewhere, it's working. I wanted to go back a little bit into the like identity.
Yes.
And you sound like you're someone who's spent a lot of time like understanding yourself. And I think among a creative cohort, there's a lot of some sense of identity is really aligned with what they're with their creative outlet. In some ways, it's an expression of self. And then we introduce different roles. You find a spouse and you have a kid. I was curious how all of these, additional kind of, I don't know, accumulation of other elements of your life.
Yeah.
How have those contributed to how you think of yourself and how you identify, whether as a mother, as a creative, as
Mm.
a, I'm just Corrie, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious how that evolution has happened.
Sure. Yeah. Um, whew. I would say that it's hard. I think that I'm not a great person in the terms of being able to just have Corey time. Like that's
Mhm.
something I feel like I'm perpetually working on.
Yeah.
It's a never ending challenge for me. So I think because I'm a mom who didn't really want to be a mom originally. I was
Mm.
very wishy-washy about having kids, and it was more my husband who really wanted to have a child, and
Yeah.
and I didn't really. I was very indecisive about it. I think because I felt so responsible as a kid all the time. I
Yeah.
was like, I can't now be super responsible
Oh,
for another
interesting.
living
Yeah.
creature. Like what?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And so
Yeah.
I was really thought, I just don't think that's for me. And then once, we had our son, of course, I can't imagine not having this life and being his
Yeah.
mother and what that's brought, to my life. And so I feel like it's sort of hard for me to identify myself as other things besides a mom now.
Mm.
It's
Oh,
it's
wow.
it's a
Yeah.
struggle for me in a way.
So
And
interesting.
I think that if I'm by myself, the few times that I might be, I'm like, what do I do with myself? And I used to feel that way before I had kids. Because I always feel like I need to be productive. I'm
Yes.
like, I'm not. And I remember my
Same.
therapist saying once, "Well, can't you just sit and look out the window?" And I'm like, "But I'm not doing anything." And she's like,
Yeah.
"Yes, you are. You're sitting and looking out the window. Like that's
I
what you're
totally
doing."
get it.
And to me, I'm like, people think that way. Like, what?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And,
Those lazy people think that way.
no. I need to be cleaning out my closet. Like, what are they talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so because my son is such a big part of my life, it's like, oh, okay, well, that's what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
being his
Yep.
mother. And so as he gets older, I can already feel like that, well, now he's needs me less and less. So what do I do with myself? And so it makes it
Write
really
more books.
exactly.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
hits home like how much that's really is my primary identity. And
Yeah.
then I have to think about, wait, no, okay, I also work and have a full-time job with my husband. I also
Yeah.
Yep.
write and try to pursue that. I also want to keep my friendships and,
Yeah.
travel and do things and,
Yep.
have this life outside of that, and how important it is for him to see that.
Yes.
Right.
I remember being a nanny for a few, 3 kids in LA for a summer. And I always was so admiring of their family because both of their parents each had full-time jobs. But they were so involved with their kids, but they also had like their life as a couple too. And it was very apparent that they had those 3 things. They had their life as their individual person, their life and whatever business they were doing, their life as a couple and their life as a parent. And I think it's really hard to show your child that like mommy has to have time with daddy by herself, and mommy has to have time just for herself, and mommy has time with you, and we have time as a whole family. We're inside, I'm like, you need to be with them all the time. And I'm trying to and it's so hard. And so I feel like as I'm sort of teaching myself as I teach him,
Yeah.
I'm sort of like saying like, these are the things I feel like you need to know to see who a healthy adult is,
Yeah.
And inside I'm like, Corrie, this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
pep talk myself.
Totally. That's so interesting.
Yeah. It's so beautiful that like becoming a parent for you, at least for what I'm hearing, is like in all of these things that perhaps you couldn't have done for yourself, you're doing it for him and then doing it for yourself.
Yeah.
And like modeling the like healthy mindset of like, it's okay to like fail or mess up or whatever. And you could see this, and it's even if you don't believe it, to show him that, like for him to see that is so empowering, and for you to end up doing it is amazing. And like even just becoming a parent with OCD and anxiety, I have the same struggles. And so like it is the scariest thing. And the thing that I told myself is like, I'm not doing it for me, I'm doing it for him. And like that power is so incredible. So I don't know.
It's true. And I love, just that we can all talk about that, because I feel like there's probably so many more mothers and parents out there, you know, that have those same struggles, and you don't, I don't know, you feel kind of alone with it sometimes, I think, until you realize, wow, like she looks like she's completely put together, and inside, like, that's not the case, you know. Not that you want people to feel that way, but you just, it makes you realize that, you know, even if we're all have different struggles, there's sort of this commonality that runs through so many parents and moms.
And we've created so many of these, I don't know if tropes is the right word, but around, you know, the helicopter parent, the snowplow parent, the lawnmower parent, all these things that, as you're saying this, I was like, so many of those behaviors are probably rooted in personal psychological struggles of like how we need to be parenting. It's not we're controlling them to make sure they get in the right school and so they get into the right job and they make whatever, have successful lives. It's also like a coping mechanism for a lot of us. And I think that's, I hadn't really thought about it that way until you were articulating that. So thank you for sharing that side.
Also, something you mentioned that I think is really cool that has been like a more common discussion lately is this generational thing of like, I remember the moment I learned that my parents were just people. And like before that, it felt like it was like, oh, they knew everything. They actually have all these answers. Like there is a correct answer to everything in life and they know it for some reason. And it's kind of a game to figure it out. And at least like in my generation, I feel like there's this more like vulnerable openness with parenting and a guarding when it's appropriate and boundaries when it's appropriate, but also transparency about stuff. And like, maybe mom doesn't know everything, but we're going to figure it out together if we don't, and that's okay. And I think that that's like really beautiful and and who knows, it could be one of those things in 20 years, our kids are going to be like,
I know, I'm so curious what the next generation,
right.
Like, zip it up. Let's not talk about this.
It could be totally like backfire, but I think there's something really like, I think we parent in the ways that we go either two ways. We do exactly what our parents did because that's what we learned, or we're like, oh my God, that didn't work out, so I'm going to go opposite. And I think that that's really cool, showing that, like, I don't know, like you said, like admitting to your son, like, I don't know, like I explained to you how we make our best choices and sometimes it doesn't work out and mom does that too and she's not perfect. Like that's really hard and important. So
it is
kudos.
so hard. And trying to like, and maybe, I don't know, trying to sort of, I don't know, I feel like there's a hope in that yes, we're his parents, and, you know, and yes, you know, there is that hierarchy, for lack of a better word, of parent and child, right? But can there be more of this sort of team element too? That it's not just, you know, it's not just someone telling someone else what to do. You know, it's also explaining and talking and trying to have an open dialogue and all those things that sound so like cliche or whatever. But I think you also see how important they are when you're actually doing them and they're put into action. And then maybe even at the time, I'm like, are you even listening? Is anything registering? And then a few days later, something will happen and it'll be like, see, mom, what'd you think? Did I do, you know? And you realize that they really are listening. And I think that's such a huge error that a lot of times is made in our society, is this feeling that kids don't understand or don't listen or don't absorb. I mean, we always say like kids are always listening and sort of like this thing people throw around, but they really are. And they absorb and understand so much more than we give them credit for. And so, yes, there are things that obviously you're going to tell a 17-year-old that you wouldn't tell a 9-year-old, right? But you can also try to explain things to children at the age appropriate level in a way that you think makes them feel like they're real people, like they're not this like little creature that you're just trying to hide stuff from, right? And I think that, I don't know, it just feels, I don't know, it sounds very corny and cliche, but it just feels like really important to me to try to do that. And I don't know if I'm really doing it well, but I always want my son to feel like I'm doing that with him.
Totally. It's a little more collaborative than maybe sometimes we make it. I also think going on, like when we say something and we're like, did you listen, whatever, and then they come back and you see them and you're like, oh, you really, even if they don't acknowledge it, you can observe them doing things that you're like, oh, they were. Like there's also so much that they teach us, that even this like learned behavior, like I love that we're sitting here talking about like, don't be scared of failing, whatever, and then meanwhile they like get on bikes and go downhill and they're like not scared of failing and falling off. Like it's almost like more for us to be like, oh, right, I don't have to be scared to fail. They're like they're not. So
Right.
why should we? It's really, I
No,
love
it's
that.
true. No, it's really true. I
Yeah.
remember I was, I'm an Ed Sheeran fan. And so I was listening to like some of his interviews. And I remember telling my son once, I'm like, I was like, Ed said in one of his interviews, like, you don't learn anything from success. You learn from failures. So like, you have to be able to fail. And I'm like, I'm telling you this. And inside I'm like, what?
Not true.
He's only failing? I'm like, huh? What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think
Crazy.
is so awesome. Like for anyone to be able to completely absorb that and be like, there is so much truth in that. And I have to be okay failing, even though like I'm such a perfectionist. The idea of failing is just like so scary to me, even as an adult.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then at the same time, you're trying to teach your child, like you were saying, be like, how do you teach your child not to fear failing when you're an adult that fears failure, right? That you're an adult that tries to do everything perfectly just because that's who you are as a person. And you're trying to not, it's not possible, but you have to like, you have to somehow get a link between your heart feeling that and your head knowing that. And that just takes such a long time. And yet at the same time, you don't want them to be scared to make mistakes and to
I think
fall down.
You do this already, but the openness around explaining it. And like, I think it's the shame associated with those things that makes it, the child picks up maybe the wrong message. But if you're delivering the message and helping to like frame the message, like plenty of parents are totally fucked up and raise very healthy kids.
Right.
Totally.
And I think a lot of that is just the parent not hide and pretending that they're fine, like sort of being honest and explaining and putting things in context, in an age appropriate way. I do think that's helpful. But we're talking a lot about role modeling and very much in the context of parenting. I'm curious how you found your mother as a role model, not necessarily as how to parent, but like how to be as a adult that happens to have kids, also is pursuing other things. Was your mom sort of critical in how you, and maybe not until I'm asking you this question now, has she influenced how you thought you wanted to be or wanted to not be?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it was a little of both with both my parents, I think, from my mom, he very much was, she was, I hate saying the word stay at home mom because it's like
I know.
I don't know what word to use.
Yeah.
I guess
she was with us all the time.
We got to reclaim it.
She
Stay at home.
She was working all the time,
Reclaim that.
Raising
exactly.
us. But sort of that comfort of, her being there, her, a lot of the things that I like today, I like because of her introducing them to me, which I've always found really special.
Yeah.
And at the same time, my father, had a full-time job outside the house, traveled a lot when I was a middle schooler and high schooler, but and that was one thing you were saying, V, about like the sort of your parent is a real person. And I think in terms of my father, it took me a long time to see that because he really was like a super dad. He was coached all our sports. He was the head of the PTA. He did all these other things, plus, traveled and for work and all these things. And he was always there. He was always around. He was always doing stuff with us too. So it was, I don't know. I think with both of my parents, it took me a long time to kind of see them as actual humans and not these like people that were kind of, I don't know, knew everything and knew all the answers and never made mistakes, never had anxieties, never second guessed what they did. So that was,
it is funny because I have to say, I don't know if I have a singular role model for how to be in this place, a role as myself plus kids plus job plus husband plus wanting friends. Like we think about role models within each of those spaces, but not in an integrated fashion. And I find it really interesting to consider why. Maybe it's because our parents' generation really lived in a highly segmented experience. But yeah,
I think that's true. I feel like I don't know, people's lives seem so more intertwined now in the terms of like, both parents being very involved or expected to be very involved. And so I think that, I don't know, it seems like it is less segmented in certain ways for sure.
Yeah.
Than it used to be.
Did your mom Weird question. You don't have to answer necessarily, but did the fact that your mom didn't work outside of the home, did that influence anything about what, like, your desire or how you thought about the importance of also having a job? Like, how did that, did you make it, or was it kind of, you didn't see it that way?
No, that's a good question. I did very much. It very much influenced, I think, in the sense that I like having a job. I like working with my husband, but you know, my son's almost 9 and the guilt has not gone away that I should not be working full time, that I should be, you know, doing, and it's not because, you know, like pressure from anything. I think it's my own internal guilt. Like I shouldn't be doing that. There's always this, I think it's very hard for me to not have a feeling of knowing intellectually that having a job and having me time and having couple time and all these things do not mean that I'm putting something before my son. But emotionally, it's very hard for me to feel that way. And so especially having a job, maybe because my mother didn't, I don't know. I feel like I'm telling my son that having a job is more important than being his mother. And I know that that's not true, but I feel like emotionally, I'm still not at that point where I can accept that.
Yeah.
You know?
We've had a few of our guests lately have talked about, they've written letters and or explained directly why mom works. I don't know if have you ever tried to have, I mean, I don't know. I'm curious actually if your son makes anything of it.
Yeah. Has he ever said, why do you work? Like, or is this totally a self,
But I think the exercise of even just a lot, the people that have done this, some of them never gave the letter to their kids. It turned out to be very much for themselves of like, why do I do this?
Right. That's actually a really good idea. I never thought about that, but I'm sure it is very therapeutic just for the person that's writing it.
Yeah.
It's also interesting though that like you didn't think your dad was selfish for working and like
I don't. And that's the thing. Yeah. No, and that's the thing that's so funny. And I think that was sort of the like this huge eye-opening thing when I realized like, oh my God, he's human, is like because he was just always there. I felt like I'm like, how do you do all of this?
Yeah.
And now when I feel struggles with time management and like I don't understand. Like I don't get how, and I know that's part of what this like podcast is about. Like, how do you feel like if you want to do all these things, how do you feel like you're completely nurturing each one of them?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I think probably part of nurturing it is not feeling guilt all the time about it. And that's what's so hard. Like I feel like, wow, I could probably nurture this one thing a lot more if I didn't feel so freaking guilty all the time about doing it.
Yeah.
You know?
That actually, our last existential question before we do these short answers, what is this, our favorite question of like sort of having it all, doing it all and having it all, and how to kind of manage the expectation if we have it of doing and having it all. It sounds like that's something that you, as anyone would, kind of grapple with.
Yeah, for sure. I think you have to truly believe that you deserve all of these things. And I think that's hard sometimes, you know, to feel like it's okay for me to want to be a mom and to want to have a career and to want to have hobbies and to want to have friends and to want to do these things. And, you know, and I think for me being someone with OCD and anxiety, that concept of deserving is very difficult for me, especially when it just has to do with me. And so I was actually telling my husband that I sometimes will go to these poetry readings. And when I was first going, I would get out of the car and I could physically feel my body changing, like the anxiety starting, because I'm like, I'm doing this just for me and I have to be okay with that. And it's really hard. And so I think it depends on what you think all is too.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like really this concept of having it all is more a concept of feeling true contentness in your life. You know, feeling like I'm nurturing the things that I want to nurture and I feel good about those things and I feel joy and value in those things. And because the reality is having it all is like perfectionism, right? It's this unicorn that you're never going to get, because what does that even mean?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I think if I can just strive for like, how content can I feel in the things that I do, I think I'll feel more like I have it all, whatever that means.
I like that framing.
I hope people can, feel that way.
Yeah. People have had such nice ways to describe, there's that redefining what all is, but all sort of in pursuit of this. Many kind of reject the notion of balance. And they think instead about alignment or, as you're saying, contentment. Like, I think that allows way more flexibility. Balance is sort of a binary, either it's working or it's not. I think
Right.
life needs to be
Yeah.
much more fluid, especially as a parent when, you could want to be focused and doing the right thing, but then I don't know, someone craps their pants and or someone spilled lemonade. Like there's,
Yeah.
you're like interfering with
Right.
my balance.
You're like,
So yeah. All right, we have a few very short answer questions if you can indulge us for the last 2 minutes.
Sure,
But
yeah.
actually, one, you're my testing ground. We didn't get into this in depth, but it kind of is implied in a lot of what we said. But we're really kind of excavating the idea of invisible labor, the cognitive load, and the things that we do, the hum in the back of our minds when we're trying to be present. I was curious. You have been very present, but I'm curious is there something on your list right now in the back of your head that's like, oh, gotta go get him from camp, or like, oh, gotta get the new lunchbox, or like, what's on your list, right? What's on the top of your list?
That's a good question. Yes, there definitely is camp. Yes. Thinking like, oh yeah, I have to remember that 3:00 I need to go do this. And I should probably put an alarm so I don't forget, lose track of time.
Yeah.
And then in the back of my head, it's like, oh, my husband's right around the corner in the other room, working right now. And what do I need to do today at work? And, I have clients that I have to do things for so I feel like it never shuts off. It just doesn't shut off. And I think you just have to, I don't know. I think the only way to stay sane is to just make peace with the fact that it's never going to shut off.
Embrace the hum.
I feel like that's
totally.
I'm like
totally. I love it. Okay. Back to our regularly scheduled programming. If you could go back to your new mom self, is there anything that you would say to her now?
Yes. I thought about this question a lot, actually.
Oh, good.
Sorry, I'm going to try not to cry.
We cry here all the time, honestly.
It's true.
To try not to be so scared.
Yeah.
That it's okay to go with what your gut says is right, and to turn off all the things that everyone else is telling you should be doing, you should be feeling.
Yeah.
That first year or so is so hard. And you're allowed to, I don't even know what the word is. You're allowed to just be who you need to be in that time, because it's so fucking hard.
Yeah.
And you can feel so alone. And no matter how amazing your spouse is, and no matter how amazing your extended family is and your friends are, you are responsible for this new life, and they send you home with more information than getting a library card,
Yes.
And you're gonna feel so much anxiety, but it really is gonna be okay. And you're gonna look back and think, God, why did I worry about that so much?
Yeah.
And so just keep telling yourself it's okay to relax, and it's okay to just do what you feel is right in the moment, and it's going to work out okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It is so hard. And probably a lot of those emotions were necessary. I do think our feelings are protective and think they're necessary and helpful. So I hope there isn't regret or shame in how we did feel. But I agree. It is, if we could all give ourselves a break or be less afraid, even though it is terrifying. We should all be afraid.
I know. As you watch the camera and zoom in to make sure,
oh God, I know.
The baby's, he's breathing in his crib, and you're like, I'm going out of my mind.
I know. Is there anything related to that or otherwise that would have been helpful so far along this motherhood experience that make it a little bit easier?
I think if I had been able to open myself up more to a community of other moms, so I could get that sort of encouragement and then reinforcement that everyone is feeling this way, in different degrees. And because I think that it was very, just like with my OCD, it was very easy for me to feel like I'm neurotic. No one is as crazy about this as I am, my opinion about this is way off the charts, and to just kind of have an outlet to know that, no, you're not crazy, and other people are feeling this way, and not even so much for them to tell you what to do or not do, because I think that's such an easy trap to get into too. And then you feel like you're juggling like 9,000 different things that you could be doing.
Yeah.
But just to know that you're not alone in feeling it.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I feel like there's the connection and then there's the perspective that comes with being around folks. And I think, the perspective is so helpful, especially in the beginning when it's so isolating.
Yeah.
Okay. Final question. Your son might be listening, or one day, maybe he will. Anything you'd like to say to him?
Oh, Sarah, now you're going to make me cry. I just adore him more than anything in the world. And I want him to do and be whoever he wants to be.
Yeah.
And I just hope that he just has the most amazing, fulfilled, wonderful life.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he will.
And to know that you can come and tell mommy anything, even when you're 35.
Yes, that's beautiful. Oh, I do want that. I want the connection to continue too. I totally agree with that. Like the sort of needing each other.
Yeah.
I'm sure that connection will always continue. I think of the kids book that's about separation and the invisible string thread.
Yeah.
Do you know this? I feel like parents want that.
Right.
There should be a kid going off to college version of that.
Yes.
That for parents.
There should be.
That invisible string will still go. Yeah. Oh, Corrie, you have such a big heart. Thank you so much for
thank you.
being here, and you're a phenomenal parent. I have no doubt. And I think in many ways, the people that we all struggle with many things. I think people that confront them and work with them and try to understand them, modeling seeking to understand and being curious about why, as opposed to punishing ourselves for why. Mm-hmm. That to me, I think is so transformative from generation to generation because we're not all going to be like smooth sailing all the time. Right, we all have our things.
Yeah.
But the curiosity stance as opposed to I need to fix this and there's something wrong. I think that's so important. And I think being creatively minded is so essential to be able to be curious fundamentally. Yeah. Like that's how you are. And I think I'm not a doctor, but I feel like you're modeling something really important for your son. And now all of our listeners too. So thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
This has been great.
Really a lot of fun and I really appreciate it.
Yay.
Yeah. Corrie,
well, I'm excited to share your story.
Thank you so much for taking the time today. I feel like I have the pleasure of knowing you from a culmination of like 2 hours. And I know you have done so much incredible work for yourself and therefore for your family. And I will tell you today that you're an incredible parent and you need to not doubt that because I know it for certain just hearing you talk today. Your son is really lucky to learn from you and see you like figure out and navigate life. And it's really brave that you are choosing to do these things. I know how hard it is to like wake up sometimes and just be so in your head and so overwhelmingly anxious and you don't have the time to feel that way sometimes where it's just like, oh, I gotta buck up and be a parent right now. And so like, I really commend you for doing it. I know it's hard.
You.
So you're doing an amazing job.
And to you guys, both of you, I mean, you're both parents and doing this and sharing, all these different perspectives with the world. And I think it's just awesome. Like I give you so much credit for putting yourself out there. And I think people think until they do it, and I have not done it, but I can just trying to put myself in your shoes that they don't realize how much work it is and how it's not, you just don't turn things on and start recording. It's a lot of work. And so I give you guys a lot of credit for doing what you're doing.
Oh, it's so easy.
I really appreciate
guys.
That.
So easy.
We just woke up like this.
It's not even
super easy. Don't listen to me.
Yes.
But
thank you so much for listening and participating.
Very much.
Thank
you, Corrie.
All right, Corrie.
Oh my gosh, that was such a beautiful, refreshing conversation to have on a Wednesday.
Oh,
I felt
great hump day
inspired. Yes. I feel like I hope that Corrie and everybody gives themselves a little more credit because I think that as moms, as parents in general, we're doing so much all the time. And I hope that she is able to see how like I see her, I'm sure her kid sees her, how her partner sees her, like whatever. Also, I am so inspired by the amount of like self-work that she's done.
Yeah.
I'm like, good on you for like being brave enough to identify why it is that you do what you do and then like do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that
Totally.
was really incredible. Like the work that she does with her therapist about OCD and anxiety and checking in with that. Why am I doing the things that I'm doing? Is that healthy? What is the intention around it? Like, and how can I shift it to be more productive and like I don't know, improving?
Yeah. Especially, I had never heard, and it makes so much sense when she talked about it, but this idea of there's not necessarily everyone that has OCD might be getting into acting for the same reasons, but I thought it was really interesting to think about why acting might be kind of a release for someone that carries OCD, and that there's an interesting way of like you can express these emotions, but also in a way that kind of is in a place of controlling them, and if you're doing a performance, they also can't get totally out of control. Like I'd never thought about that. And I wonder how many actors out there are suffering from OCD. I think, and many of the things that she was describing, which is like, essentially, why am I doing this? What is this solving? And then obviously the fear of once you get to that other side is it still won't solve those things. I'll still be me struggling with these things. Yeah, that's very brave. I very much identify with this sort of seeking. She's tried so many different career paths, and all of which build towards everything that she is and will continue to build. I also think the career path that hits in different industries can sometimes feel uncomfortable because the model we're given is like, well, of course you'll collect skill set A, then B, then C, then D, and they will reach E, which is an amalgamation of all of those things. And I think sometimes that amalgamation, like, maybe not, it doesn't happen necessarily in a singular job, and maybe it also doesn't happen for a while. And I think that's I grapple with that for sure as someone that's tried a lot of different things and is motivated by a lot of different things, but is trying to figure out how to someone make it make sense. But yeah, and then also to your point about OCD and just being open about it's just so meaningful for her to be willing and able to share so intimately about what that feels like and how raising kids as a parent with OCD, like how that shows up. And yeah, the hardness of it and the lack of control. And I think in which people with and without varying degrees of diagnoses or boxes checked about how their brain works. But I think all of those things are kind of universal. It's just sort of how heightened are they, and have we found the tools to kind of like help move through some of them? And I love what's happening right now.
What's happening? I'm listening.
What is this cord?
Nothing to see here.
What was I going to say about, I also really liked that there has certainly been a theme in the interviews of the clarification of purpose and ambition and motivation, whatever, that happens often when kids come into the picture.
Yes.
I think also the role for her that her kid has played in helping her kind of wrangle the sort of mental health struggles that she described was really interesting, and how much humans just like need a reason. And often for many people themselves isn't a good enough reason, that it needs to be for someone else or something else. And I think for a lot of people that find like deep meaning and satisfaction and a sense of like calm with once they have kids, for example, these are people that often it's not about that. It's never been about them ever. And so there's like seeking something to give a reason to do anything. And I think somehow having a child can like be that universal reason, and ideally not in a, I don't know, unhealthy relationship way, but in a grounding, calming way, like gives you some roots.
I think that is such a beautiful that, like, I definitely identify that with that, where I have never have felt as like calm or at ease with my anxiety. It's not to say that it's gone, but it's like in a beautiful way. If I can't do it for me, I'm
Can
fine.
you find the mic? That's so funny.
Yeah, he's ridiculous. I'm doing it for him, but in a healthy way, not in a codependent, like, I need him to
Right,
not be
exactly,
anxious,
exactly.
but I'm channeling, if I can't do it for myself, I can channel that strength
Yeah,
to say that that's my purpose. And I
totally.
think that, there's a balance, right? Like,
Yeah.
it would be unhealthy if it was like, but without him, that doesn't ring true. I think it's learning through them. Like, I'm learning through him how to do that.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Okay,
Sarah,
anyway.
where's your joy?
Where the fuck is my joy? My joy, I said this actually during the interview, but I'm like giddy in a way about bringing our oldest to sleepaway camp. And the process of doing that and creating a moment and a memory. I'm not good at creating moments and memories like intentionally with kids. I think I do that in a more organic way. I'm not good at like, let's sit down and take the picture before on the first day of school, and let's sit down and hold a sign on the last day of school. And I think a lot of those things actually really do matter to kids. It's just not my skill set. And I think this is kind of it's a moment.
I love it.
It doesn't mean we need to like blow it up and make it a poster, but it's a moment. And I'm also I love the growth. Maybe a postcard. I also am giddy. I don't know. It's like our first moment of like, we had this little child in a petri dish and we've been like managing all elements of him. And now it's like, bye. I'm just curious how this little thing is going to survive.
I know.
On its own. And actually currently without I have no fear. I'm more fascinated. It could go in so many different directions.
I love that. Fascinated is a fantastic way to go into this. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause it's like the world is his oyster. Quite like TBD. But like, best of luck.
Yes.
Like,
and you know him. It could go in a million directions. And probably it's the million and one that I haven't thought about, which is where it's
actually
the
one that you didn't consider. You're like, where the fuck did that come from?
Yes.
Like,
he's gonna like sneak away, get on a bus, wind up in New York City.
Like, how did you have the skill set to do this? And also what?
Totally.
It's gonna be great.
He's like, I saw it in Inside Out. Like, that's what we're supposed to do.
You've seen Pets too, right?
Yes.
I'm in the city.
He does identify as a city kid all the time, which is really funny.
So good.
Okay, anyway, that brought me joy in process.
Love.
Where's your joy, my friend?
Well, you told me where my mandatory
I told you where your joy had to be. But you can choose your own joy.
No, it is a good one. My joy is that prior to my mom passing, she had written this book about her childhood cat who went missing and was in the process of like trying to get it published, and ultimately like wasn't able to before she died. And so our friend who like had seen, my mom had a bunch of like illustrations and the writings, whatever, a friend put together a few spiral bound book versions for her service. And I had just like discovered, I'm going through stuff to organize, preparing for our move, and like opened a box and discovered it and decided to read it to my son this morning. And so that was really cute and cool. The one thing I have to say, like just a little criticism to my mom.
I was gonna say, it's a good book.
It's cute, but it's so long that I'm like, listen, like he has the attention span for like 2 pages right now. And so I need to figure out how to like,
maybe it's not age appropriate.
Yeah, but then I'm like, what was the age that she ultimately? Because it's not a chapter book, but it's not. It's a picture book, but it's a verbose picture book. So we're working on the abridged version. I'm thinking of doing a collaborative short.
I just had a crying internal moment. You could co-write the next iteration, and we get it published.
It's been on my list of which I guess I needed the purpose, so maybe now it is of like. In my dream world, she had like rough sketches and like rough everything. And I was like, oh, I want to take it over. And I was like, one day I'll get Penguin, publish it or like whatever. But then I don't know.
Dude, let's do it. My mom did that on behalf of her partner, who's a poet on the side. And after he died, she spearheaded the effort to get his collection of poetry published.
Maybe
so let's put Megan Marshall on it.
Yeah,
she seems to be known in the industry. Maybe she can help us.
listen to our episode with Meg and Marsha. We'll have her back when she talks about book editing. My mom needed an editor. And I know it's not me because I'm just like, damn, Mom. It's a really sweet story. Also, coincidentally, it's based in the town that we live in now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of full circle.
Totally. All right, I want to ask you more questions, but I know your son stole your mic from you. You're the best. I love you so much. Thank you for doing this. We'll talk soon. Okay, bye. Thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode and we can reach even more rock stars like you. The Mothers is a production of Backline Media, shining a light on those who carry the team.